Every week on How to Business, we sit down and answer one question designed to help small business owners get unstuck and restore business momentum. The truth is, most businesses aren't stuck for the reason you think. Our job is to help you find the real bottleneck. So, this week's question is: do you have a predictable source of qualified prospects or leads that you can count on month in, month out that are going to help you sleep at night? And, we can talk about what predictability actually means in a minute, but from a small business perspective, let's just talk for a second about the value of predictability when it comes to what kind of runway you give yourself in order to work on your business.
I think a lot of small businesses, they're purists and they got into a business that they love and they feel like if I just do a really good job for people, if I serve well, if I provide an amazing product, word of mouth will get out and I'll always have business. And I'm a big fan of referrals. I'm a big fan of word of mouth. The problem is if you've ever run a business off of that system, you know that it can be feast or famine. There can be months where you have plenty of business coming through the door, and there are months where you feel like you're going to starve to death. And that's because referrals and word of mouth are not what I would consider predictable. They are phenomenal add-ons to a business, and you should work hard to find a way that your clients are singing your praises and they're telling their friends about what you do. But I don't think most businesses want to rely on that because it puts the ball in your client's hands to do the heavy lifting of telling people who you are and what you do best. And so I feel like that's an area where a lot of businesses need work, is finding a way to make it predictable. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be nice to go to bed every night and know I'm going to get 15, 20, 30 qualified prospects every single month because I have a system? To me, that's the goal, is to find a way to bring that system into each small business so they can sleep at night. And then these extras from referrals and word of mouth, that's on top of that.
Yeah. And you and I talk a lot about investing and money and, having a balanced portfolio. And that obviously gives us a lot of personal peace and the ability to kind of have dreams and goals. And there's nothing guaranteed about it, but there is predictability. I think what you're talking about is it's not putting all your eggs in one basket, because that would be foolish, but it's also not just assuming that one thing that's working for you right now is going to keep working for you forever.
Well, I think I love history, and I love reading about different events in history that have really moved the needle in people's businesses positively or negatively. And one thing that always comes to mind is the old Route 66 across America. And it used to be the path that people would follow to tour our country, whether it was family vacations or, just a way to get from one coast to the other. And all of these great businesses, little towns popped up all along Route 66. And many of them were known for quality. They might have the best burger and shake in Arizona or wherever it was, and they were known for that. So people would stop. And then one day, the interstate came through and people began to move from Route 66 to the interstate.
It's the plot of Cars, the movie.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And so suddenly this dependable funnel of constant clients was no more. And so any business that did not have a way to get people's attention and bring them to their establishment eventually closed. And you can see it today. You drive down Route 66 and it is a ghost town of businesses who were once thriving and were known for their quality. So I think that we have to always be thinking ahead for how am I going to bring customers into my business as my industry evolves or as my lead sources may change. And so I love to have one lead source spinning and another one in the queue that we're developing at all times. I mean, like you said, ideally a mutual fund's the way to go, where you've got 4 or 5 sources. And maybe talk about that a little bit, Brent.
Yeah.
It's good to have multiple sources, but not so sure it's good to be working on like 3, 4, 5 of your next sources at one time.
That's right. That's right. You've got to have focus. And I think the discipline of that is what throws a lot of businesses off track too, because, we're always chasing the shiny object and the next platform, the next channel. It's like, let's go hard on paid media. And, cause that's predictable, but it also gets really expensive. Right. And so there's a balance to this. Predictability isn't a single source. Predictability is about having a system that delivers what you need, and that source portfolio can be widely diverse, and it probably should be, but it also needs to be something you can manage. Um, referrals, as the example you gave, not predictable. They come in bursts. They only grow as fast as your network does, and you can kind of run that into the ground, right? And so I think because of your background in real estate, there's so many ups and downs, and it's cyclical based on seasonality and the market. So, just using that as an example, how can you build a system of predictability within a business like real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And real estate may be one of the very best industries to illustrate this. Because when you first get your license, almost every traditional broker in the country is going to tell you, all right, get your list out and write down all your friends and family and everybody you know. And they're getting ready to tell you to go pester all the people in
That's
your life.
it's real estate 101,
Um,
right?
Exactly. And so that's your first day in real estate is to go, freak out all your family and friends, go, oh Lord, we got another one that's in real estate. And you're going to call them and, try to earn their business. And yes, I don't get me wrong, I am a fan of that. I believe it's important to have it, but I can tell you in my years working in real estate, I watched two kind of streams of real estate agents. One group was very hardcore by referral only. That's what they believed in. And it was that what I was describing earlier. If I work hard enough and I serve enough people well, the business will keep coming. And then I had a group that would run a system where they would prospect around a particular system that would bring business in very, very predictably. And the truth is, my favorite was right in the middle. It's pulling both of those together, kind of like what you were talking about just a minute ago. Is that yes, the referrals and your network is great, but it's going to be in fits and starts. Predictable systems are amazing because they always bring you, that next deal, that next deal. But when you pull them together, you can magnify and grow your business in a way that you couldn't with just one of them. So the answer is you need both. So, you're starting today, you're brand new in business. What's your first step? Well, it's great to go after those friends and family. Go ahead and start that referral thing rolling, get it going, and, start that particular top spinning, so to speak. But very quickly, we want to start putting down a system on paper on purpose to develop a system for bringing people in to your business. Maybe you are naturally gifted at being on camera and you want to start working Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Great. Let's sit down and put a plan on paper on purpose, calendarize a plan of when I'm posting, what I'm posting, and how long I'm going to do this, what my call to action is going to be on each one of those. That's an example. You've got a lot of experience in that
Yeah.
world. Maybe you can talk through a couple of those other ideas.
Yeah, well, I think, again, back to the idea of the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, right? The second best time is today. You have to be managing short term and long term because, again, that's what the predictability system gives you. And there are so many options, but the example of Route 66, like that kind of hurts my feelings a little bit because I've always been an advocate. Like, if you put out the best product in the market, you don't have to do any marketing. It's going to take care of itself. People are going to be talking about it. They're going to go out of their way to come get your thing, whatever that is, unless they move the road. You know what I'm saying? And that's happened. Like, imagine if you own a mom and pop gas station in Athens, Alabama, and then right off the interstate, Bucky's is opening up. Do you have a shot to compete with them? maybe, but you're going to have to do some things differently because you can't just rely on being the only 6 pumps in town now that there's 800, right? So thinking about the predictability is not external factors. It's things that you can control, and understanding what the value of those leads are and how, like, what number do you need? And that's part of the system too, right? I remember you and I used to work on the business at Ramsey. We had a dashboard. We knew each month how many leads we required in order to make the number that was expected by the board, and we knew what they were worth. And so we started doing content, we started doing paid media, but we knew not to overspend and we knew not to over-index on this one channel because that had a value and a cost to it. So I think, again, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, but you have to be focused until it's producing or until you know that it's not going to, and then you have to shift. And so, that's a lot to ask of a business owner. It really is. And I think that's
Especially if you're a
where
small business and you're
it
by
is.
yourself. And, and maybe that's who I want to talk to for just a minute is that
Yeah.
person who's the solopreneur
Yes.
and really feels like they are, the only one that's going to make this happen. And that's where focus is going to be absolutely required. And I personally am doing this right now. I'm helping my wife get her real estate business going. And there are so many days that I am tempted to dabble a little here and dabble a little there in each of these different lead sources that that I want to spool up one day. I have a list of all these places I'd love to source clients from. But the truth is, my efforts are best spent by becoming an absolute expert at one of these because I'm actually building it. I'm teaching myself how to do a few of these things. And so my best effort is in focus and getting one of these spun up until we reach some sort of minimal viable product. And then once we hit that, I can discuss, is it time now to hand that off to somebody? Are we making enough money where I can pay somebody to come in and run that channel while I go over here and work on something that's a little bit better for my time and my expertise? And so resist the temptation to do a little YouTube and a little Instagram and a little SEO and a little AI and a little, networking. Resist it. Find what you're really, really bent towards in those early days. Which of the opportunities that are laid before you to grow your business when it comes to your lead sources are you just naturally good at? And let's start there. Focus on that.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, the example of the interstate moving or the competitor popping up, those are tangible, but like maybe more practical is like, what if you're doing all your leads from Facebook and Instagram ads and the government says, we're shutting Meta, we're shutting you down because we don't like what you're doing. Your primary source of business is gone. If you woke up and that happened, what would you do? If you're a business owner and if you don't have an answer to that, you probably need to spend a few minutes, few days, give us a call, like talk through, okay, because the honey hole is dried up. What do you do? Do you go somewhere else? Do you look for another, business? Do you look for another location? And I think you and I talked about this, like real estate example. What happens after you help a client buy or sell a property? Your hope is that they return to you in 6 to 8 years when they're ready to move again. But that's a long time to wait in between, right? And so what does your job become? How do you shift your thinking and how do you serve your current customers so that they become repeat customers?
That's right. Well, when it comes to real estate, the system doesn't end after you've pulled the lead in and you've served them well. That system now becomes a second system, which is the long-term nurture of that client. And so, once we close a deal, we move from being the person that helps you get a home to the person who helps you understand your investment in the context of that local market. And so we're going to be actually helping people understand what's happening in their actual neighborhood, what's selling, what improvements we see happening in that neighborhood and around that area, what's
You
happening
become
in
their
terms.
real estate investment advisor.
Exactly. What's happening with your ROI this particular year? And so we want them to see us as the local expert on all of those things. And why does that matter? Well, number one, it serves the customer well. But number two, it reminds them that if any of their friends are in the market for a competent agent in a sea of real estate agents in that particular market, they need to call us. And if you're not in front of your clients after you've made the sale, what motivation do they have to bring you to mind when that family or friend, needs that help? Just as a side note in real estate, one of the saddest statistics I have ever heard is that somewhere upwards of 80% of people are very satisfied with their realtor when the transaction is complete, but only 20% of people ever use them again. And when asked why, the answer was, I never heard from them again after the transaction. So there again is another system. If you're looking for a place to start with your current clients and start building a system around serving them after they've purchased your product or service, and figure out ways that we can turn them into a second purchase, or they can begin to send their friends and family to you as part of that. So all this is a systems that we're talking about. And most of us have opportunity laying around that if we'll get after it and we'll start working on a system, we can create some of these other avenues of lead gen that we may be missing in our business.
And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be intentional. As you were talking, I was almost in my head coming up with, all right, here's the system. One post on social media per day, one blog on your website per week, one podcast or video per month, one email per quarter, one event per year. If you do those 5 things, they will serve you. And that is a predictable cycle that you can control, you can take ownership of, and you're not hoping and you're not spending beyond your means and beyond your revenue to keep that lead flow coming. So again, that's a gross oversimplification, but that's what the thinking that we're talking about here is. And regardless of the business you're in, there's a system, because you and I have worked in a lot of different types of business, and I've seen that system work. It's all about consistency. It's all about being intentional with who your customer is, which we talked about last week. So again, just reminding you that you don't have to do all of this on your own. You just have to create a plan and then find the opportunities to connect with the right people who are going to help you execute it.
One of the things that just came to my mind as you were talking here is that predictability requires systems, period. I see so many small businesses who just pray and spray every month. And I can think of several people that I have known, several people I have worked for in the past, and every new shiny object that pops up, especially these days with Facebook feed, they can read your mail. They know what you're into. They know what you're thinking about. They know what your problems are. And they're going to throw a million different ways to generate leads in front of you when you're on there. And I know so many business owners who get so wound up over this new thing that comes along. And so every month is this new exercise at throwing money at something that may or may not pay off. And it kills profitability and it kills focus. And it, more importantly, most of the time you're buying into someone else's system, not creating your own. So you don't own it. So you're looking up 2-3 years from today and you don't own your system of acquiring customers. So it's so important that our owners think in systems. They understand that they need quality clients, but we've got to create a system. And as a side note, if you can own that system, if you can take the long, hard road and build it yourself so that someone else can't turn that switch off on you later, that's going to benefit your business so much more. So don't take the pray and spray method. Decide on one thing that you want to go after, focus on it, and get it built out.
Yes. And that's why you and I are here. Heath, you and I love systems. We have tons of experience building them. across a variety of businesses. So if you're here, if you're watching this and you're like, I need help, I need this, I need that predictability, I need that system, don't hesitate to call, reach out, let us help you. Check us out at howtobusinesscoaching.com, and we would be privileged to have that conversation.